Greetings, James.
Hey Robert, how are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm good. Other than going to the gym and doing legs this morning and sitting down, I'm doing okay. Today I have New York Times best-selling author of The Monuments Men, Mr. Robert M. Edsel. We're going to talk about his highly anticipated new book being released ahead of the 80th anniversary of Memorial Day, which marks the end of World War II. The book is called Remember Us. Robert, tell us a little bit about the book. First of all, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Well, this is an extraordinary story that's not been told, and it's hard to believe there's a major story about World War II 80 years later that hasn't been told. But of course, I heard that concerning my book, Monuments Men. Well, and that was truly something that we didn't know about. This story is even more personal and frankly, more important because without our freedom, none of this other stuff matters. It's a story of a remarkable place in the Netherlands where World War II in Western Europe begins because the German tanks roll across the border from Germany into the Netherlands on their way to Belgium and France. And it's an area that there is one of our cemeteries, our World War II cemeteries, the Netherlands American Cemetery. And at the end of World War II, there were 17,800 Americans buried there. So I follow the lives of 12 American flyers, tankers, gravedigger, just a different perspective on who these men and women were that fought this war. Some don't make it, some do. And then this transcendent moment at the end of the war when the people of the Netherlands, with enormous gratitude for the Americans for liberating them after 4 years, 4 months, and 4 days of occupation, want to find a way to answer the question, how do you thank your liberator when they're no longer alive to thank? And they create this grave adoption program that is still in effect today. 80 years later, every single American grave has one person in the Netherlands that watches over it and takes care of it like a family member. It's so heartwarming and touching, really remarkable story.
You got some other stories in there too. Just give us a few of the other stories you talked about.
Well, we have quite a cast of characters. There are twins who are pilots that at the time in 1943, the Army Air Force allowed to fly together, bomber pilots. 101st Airborne paratrooper who's a Medal of Honor recipient, jumps into Normandy on D-Day. We tell a story that's not been told in World War II about the digging of the graves. What happens to a soldier when he's killed on the battlefield? How does he get from the battlefield to wherever it is that he's going? And in this case, we follow one of the key characters, a man named Jeff Wiggins, who's a black American from Alabama, Dothan, Alabama, who had the horrific experience of being a gravedigger. He was a soldier with the quartermaster troops that we were more comfortable handing a shovel to than a rifle. And he had just a very difficult time because there's no coffins out there at the time. They were all the boys were buried in bed sheets. So it was a very physical, tactile task, dangerous task, because a lot of the bodies had live ammunition on them. So we want people to understand each aspect of what truly does happen in war, rather than a more antiseptic telling of we were behind, we didn't want to be involved in World War II, we were attacked, we got involved, we won, we came home, we moved on. But for 405,000 Americans, there wasn't any moving on. And this cemetery, there's someone from every single state in the United States. There are 253 sons of Missouri that are there. So every single state has somebody that's there, including District of Columbia. There are 4 women that are buried there today. And it's just such a touching story then at the end of the war. We know, of course, death's axiomatic to war. Something different happens there than everywhere else. The Dutch want to find an answer to the question, how do you thank your liberator when they're no longer alive to thank? And they come up with this transcendent moment of grace and humanity of creating a grave adoption program to watch over the boys like they're their own forever. And they've done it now for 80 continuous years. Really remarkable effort.
I noticed that one of the notes I have here, there's a Staff Sergeant Arthur Joseph Wigert, actually from St. Louis, Missouri. You got him highlighted in your book. I've got a picture of him. I'm going to put it up when we actually talk. But one of the other things I definitely want to talk to you about is the organization Forever Promise Project. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Monuments Men and Women Foundation, which I founded in conjunction with writing the Monuments Men book, we created to honor the men and women that were monuments officers because they came home after the war and their service was just overlooked. And we continue their mission of finding missing works of art and returning them. So we thought there's got to be a higher calling to just writing this book, and there was, which was the Dutch have only ever, even though all 10,000 graves and names of walls of the missing have an adopter, there are 10,000 Dutch adopters basically, they only have about 20% of the names and addresses of American next of kin. So there are 8,000 people there, some of whom have thick files on Americans that are buried there that they're the adopter of, and they knew, their families knew these boys. They might have lived in their home for the 4 months that they were there before the final push on Berlin. And they're literally dying to find an American family member to start corresponding with and sharing this information. So we created the Forever Promise Project. Foreverpromise.org is the website. And we're asking Americans that had someone that was killed during World War II to go to the website. There's a database of all 10,000 men and women. There are 4 women that are buried there. It's searchable. They can see if they have a relative there. There's a short questionnaire that pops up and asks you, what's your relationship to the relative? Are you aware there's an adoption program? Are you in contact with your adopter? Would you like to be in contact with your adopter? Will you give us permission to share your information with our colleagues in the Netherlands that run the adoption program? And then the adopter will be in contact. So it's a beautiful element, a transcendent element, to try and get the adoption program all the way up to as close to 100% as we can get these years later. And that was the original vision of the founders. It's just that the American Army and government refused to provide that next of kin information. So it's a chance to read an amazing story that's not been told and learn about, some of the car wreck aspects of war, about what does happen to someone when they're killed. More importantly, when the war ends and most of our American telling of war in films and books finishes, we go into the homes of the family members and we experience the challenges that they're going through now that their world's been turned upside down, all the way through the adopters and this great thing that the Dutch have done in honoring the American men and women like their own forever. And 80 years later, in a world where what's a promise mean? Their promise, they're keeping. Absolutely.
One last item, Robert, where can we get the book? Please tell us.
Well, the book tomorrow is available everywhere. You can get on Amazon or your stores, Barnes and Nobles and others, and order it today. You'll have it tomorrow probably. It's available at bookstores everywhere. I'm traveling the country talking about the book, but also trying to raise awareness about the Forever Promise Project, because we need the help of Americans to finish this last stretch. The military likes to say we don't leave anybody behind, but to what end if we forget about them? And that's our determination and dedication to this story, is to make sure that we never forget who some of these men and women were, and more importantly, the fact that freedom's not free, and we have the freedoms we enjoy today because these men and women paid for it with their lives.
I've been speaking with New York Times bestselling author Robert M. Edsel. I can't wait for you to come to St. Louis. If you do come, I'm going to be there. Okay, Robert?
Thanks, James.
All right. Thank you for joining us on Morning Blend.